Welcome. My name is Derek Carrington II, and this is Rock for a Pillow. Today I'm going to be giving you my testimony. So I'm going to start off my testimony beginning with me as a child until where I am now. My testimony truly begins when I was 6 years old. When I was 6 years old, I had a dream. In the dream, I was standing in front of a lot of people, and the words that I said were very, very important. I don't know exactly what I said, but I just know that the words were very, very important. And from this dream at 6 years old, this actually was my reason for dressing appropriately, for speaking proper, to holding myself, for holding myself the way that I do, for standing the way that I do. This dream really was one of the anchors to my life. And when I woke up from that dream, I didn't tell anybody. I just knew that it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I just knew that it was going to happen and that I needed to prepare myself. So I needed to be excellent with my words. I needed to be excellent with school. I needed to be excellent with whatever I do because I don't know what I was going to say, but it was going to be very important. So from 6 years old, I hold on to this dream, and that's just a dog in the background. But and from 6 years old, I hold on to this dream, and I grow up. And in the family household I grew up in was a very loving household. My dad loved me and my brother. My mom loved me and my brother. My dad was actually one of the patriarchs of just not my family, but his family. Everybody in our family would go to him. Everybody in the neighborhood, or our family members, our outside family members that aren't really our family, would come to him and ask for guidance. So my dad allowed me to have a lot of pride about myself and who I am as a person. He gave me a lot of I developed a lot of confidence because of how my dad carried himself and how people respected him. How because of who my dad was and my mom, they gave me complete respect and made sure that I stayed on the right path and would even open their door to me. So, moving on to the age of 12, I'm living. We're in our house, and me and my brother have a bunk bed at this time, and I stay on the top bunk bed, and my brother stays on the bottom. And my parents live in the master's room. So this is a 2-story house, and there's a banister, right? And my parents are on this side, and me and my brother are on this side, and there's like a hallway in between. That night, I heard my dad say to me, Terrell. Like a lot of people on the podcast, and if you meet me in person, I'll probably go by Derek, but my family calls me Terrell. So my dad says to me, Terrell, and I get up, I walk down the hallway, go around the banister, and I walk down to his room, and I open the door, and I say, Dad, yo, you called me. What do you want? He says, son, I didn't call you. Kind of sleep. He doesn't say, So I go back to sleep. I walk back to the room, go back to sleep, and I hear my dad call me again. And he says, Terrell. So I go back to his room, and I say, Dad, what do you want? He says, Terrell, I did not call you. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, you didn't call me, but I clearly heard my dad say my name. So I go back to my room, and I go back to sleep again, and I hear my dad say, clear as day, Terrell. I walk to my room, and I'm irritated at this point. I'm like, yo, Pop, you can just tell me what you want. You don't really got to go through all this. Like, this is just too much right now. So I go to his room, I open the door again, and I say, Dad, what do you want? You keep on calling me. Like, I'm annoyed. And he's coming out of a sleep. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, I know you calling me. I don't know why you playing. Like, I don't know why you're playing. So he says, Terrell, I did not call you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back to your room, and I want you to say, Father, I am your servant. He tells me about Samuel. And I say, he tells me, go back and say, Father, I am your servant. And I listen to my dad. I go back into my room. And I say, Father, I am your servant, and an experience happens. 2 days later, after that, it was a spiritual experience that happened. 2 days later, I am aware of people's emotions. And going back to that, when my dad said, Terrell, thinking about it, where my dad was positioned and where I was, even if my dad wasn't saying it, would have sounded more like an echo, but it sounded very clear in my ear. So it really confused me because I'm like, I really thought it was my dad. Like, why? There's no way my dad from where he was could have said something unless he's running to my door and he's like, Terrell, and they're going back to sleep and trying to trick me, but that wasn't happening. So the spiritual experience happened that night after I said, Father, I am your servant. 2 days later, another spiritual experience happens, and it affects me in a way where I am very aware of people's emotions, whether they say it or not. But more than being aware of their emotions, I can feel their emotions. And growing up, I wasn't that emotional of a child. My emotion actually I reacted to things. But me personally, I was just a very upfront and honest person. And it was just, it kind of annoyed my parents, just to be honest. And when this experience of being able to feel emotion so much happened, it was so much that I said to the Father, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening, but take this away from me. I don't want to feel anymore, because the pain was just so much. I felt people's pain, and all I wanted to do was run to wherever they were and be like, stop feeling pain. It's like, it's not that bad. Please stop. But I wasn't able to. So, as I continue to develop, I'm looking down at my notes. As I continue to develop, I take the vow of abstinence at about 14. And the reason why I take the vow of abstinence, up until this point, my family's good. My dad's great. My mom's great. Got a great house. I'm a neighborhood kid. I got great friends in my neighborhood. Everything in my life is working out for it, because I'm like, 14 years old. Like, there's nothing bad. Like, even the people going to what I do, I was satisfied with my life completely. Everything about my life, I was truthfully satisfied with. Now, so in church, in youth church at this time, they did a seminar on sex. And they had said, like, the effects of if you have sex and all the diseases that you can get. And they were making a very convincing argument. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, why haven't my parents talked to me about this? This is very crucial information. I'm just so glad that somebody would tell me all of this. So the vow of abstinence comes, and I think it was taking the vow of abstinence and getting baptized. So I go in front of the whole congregation of the older church, not just the kids, the older church, and I say, I'm going to take the vow of abstinence, and I'm going to take, and I'm also going to get baptized as well. So I take the vow of abstinence and I get baptized. And this has kind of been one of my dilemmas to this day. I like finding shortcuts. So I didn't really attend that class that told you everything about what was going to happen, but I did know the story, and I did read the Bible, or heard that part. So I know that when you got baptized, that a dove was going to come down and you're going to have the Holy Spirit. So when I got baptized and I came out the water, there was no dove. I was very disappointed. I was a very avid fan of Dragon Ball Z at the time, so I thought I was going to get superpowers as well, just because when I read the Bible, it sounded like superpowers to me. It sounded like superpowers. And I didn't get those. So it came to the point where I already did this baptism. There's no turning back. I might as well keep it going. So I decided to keep it going, but there was a thing that happened that didn't really present itself right then. But when I took that vow of abstinence, my dad didn't really believe me. It was kind of like everybody, all the adults at the church, it sounded nice, but nobody believed, because of how they lived their lives, nobody believed that you could really take the vow of abstinence. But up until that point, everything that the Father said, it worked. At least what I was given, because the lesson that I was taught in kids' school was to love your neighbor as yourself. That was the second greatest command, and on this holds all the law. So if I did that, it was a SparkNotes version of the Bible. The Bible's very big. I did not want to read it, so I listened to what the Messiah said, and I just meditated on that principle constantly. And just up until that age of 14 and before taking vow of abstinence, loving my neighbor, it just made sense. Like, it literally protected me from so many things. And I'm saying, well, if this works, then the Father has already shown himself true to me. I'm going to try other stuff because he's already provided for me and my family and everything. So I'm going to keep on trying. So I continue to love my neighbor. I take on the vow of abstinence. And then I go to then it like then I'm I know the Ten Commandments kind of, so I'm like, okay, I could do that. Don't steal, don't kill. Okay, I could do those. I could do those. So I go to the movies with my parents, and up until that point, after like I'm at 15 about now, and everybody, at least everybody in Detroit I know, they love to movie hop. And I said to my parents, I'm not gonna movie hop. Now, when I said that to my parents, it wasn't met by like this, oh my gosh, I love that you're following what the Father says. No, it was actually met by jokes. And they're like this, oh, Terrell, why you always ruining the party? Oh, man, why can't you just go with the agenda? Why can't you just go along with the rest of us? And they chimed my little brother in, who was actually 4 years younger than me at the time. He still 4 years younger, but he was 4 years younger, and he chimes in, they get him going, and he starts talking against me. He's like this, oh man, Red, look at you, you always doing this, always doing stuff like this, saying I can't do this and saying I can't do that. And I don't know what other convictions I had at that point, but I'm pretty sure I did. But one was the movie. So I would sit outside the movie while my parents, and sometimes even they would go with their friends or other family members, and I would just sit outside, and I'd be like, no, I'm good, I'll wait. We didn't pay for the movie, so I'm not going to go to the second one. And it moved to the point where they would actually just give me the money, and I'll go buy my own ticket, and they would movie hop, and I'll just catch up with them because they hated the fact that I would just sit out there. But so the Father came through on that. So that's just to speak a little bit on how I was developing. Now, at 16 years old, I get my first car, and it's a Explorer Sport truck. And I get this truck, and I'm in children's church, and at this time, all the kids in children's church, I actually don't consider myself a church kid because I didn't connect with any kids in children's church. I like the kids in my neighborhood a lot more. The kids in children's church, we never hanged out with each other, never did anything with each other. I didn't know them. You know what I'm saying? It was just like something we did, and I just said hi to them, even if they said hi to me. But for some reason, I didn't fit in children's church, and I couldn't figure it out. Why didn't I fit? And there was like this thing happening where people started acting differently, and I didn't really know what it was or why everybody was acting so differently. And so it got to a point where there's one girl in the church, in teens church or whatnot, and she liked me, I liked her. I don't know how we ended up, but we ended up in my car in a parking lot, and we're kissing on each other or whatnot, and it gets to a heightened point where she says to me, Derek, I'm going to take your virginity. Are you really about that vow of abstinence? And I'm like, the vow of abstinence? Like, you talking about 2 years ago, the vow of abstinence? I'm like, oh, I didn't say a word to her, but I said, just quiet. And she deciphered that I wasn't for moving forward, so we wrapped it up. And I would say that I was curious, and I knew how to test the waters. I knew how to position myself in the right place so I can see what happens. And I would say that ability actually came out of kindergarten. There was a girl that was 3 years older than me, and she allowed me to touch, and I knew that, and she actually started it, and I knew that people are willing to do stuff if you're just quiet. It just pushes the ball. So that thing that happened in kindergarten continued until I was 16. You know what I'm saying? But that was the next time that it really presented itself, when I was like 16 inside of that car. So that didn't happen. And me and Jessica kind of liked each other, so it felt kind of special being in the car or whatnot. But nothing else happened. After that, it was done. Nothing else happened with me and that young lady. And so now there was another incident with another girl inside of the teen church. It didn't go that far, but it happened, and we ended up kissing or whatnot. But it was kind of like I understood what carnal kind of felt like. There was no emotion attached, and it was very unpleasant. And I was just like this, okay, like I'm never doing this again. Like this is terrible. But what I realized was the difference between me and the kids in children's church was that the kids in the teen or the children's church, they had started engaging in sexual intercourse, and their personalities had began to change. So moving from being in church and seeing, I started at this time My dad is like seeing that I'm actually holding to this vow of abstinence thing and I'm not having sex, and he's starting to see all these like young ladies. He's like this, you ain't gonna talk to her. You ain't gonna talk to her. Go talk to her. And I'm like this, man, what is this? Like, I'm doing this vow of abstinence. But because of my dad's lifestyle or how he grew up, he can't believe it's out of his consideration box. He can't believe it. Like, it's unbelievable. If you never flew, how do you believe somebody fly? It's unbelievable. So he didn't believe that I was flying on this principle. So I enter into high school, and I enter into high school my freshman year. And that girl from the kindergarten incident, the guy on the football team, he was a junior on the football team, big, about like 6'4", did not like me at all. I walk into the student the cafeteria, and guess who is sitting next to the guy who doesn't like me the most? That young lady. And when I see her, I go, oh my gosh, sin is real. I am paying for the consequences of my sin right now. Like, oh my goodness, Father, I am so sorry. I am sorry. I am just so sorry. Like, I don't ever want to see this girl again. She not only does this guy not like me, but she gets up and so excited to see me, walks over and she's like, oh, hey, like, and trying to have a conversation. And I'm looking at the guy over there. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just a freshman in high school, man. I'm just trying to make it, bro. Like, this is hard. So that happens. And in high school, other things happened that made me see that the worldview that my parents gave me wasn't really true. My parents taught me that I am a person and that I'm on this planet with so many other people, that we're all equal, and that the things that you see on the news and the media, even if Trump had existed at that time, they would tell me that's just nonsense. Like, it's a game everybody's playing, and they know it's not true. And I'll be like this, oh, okay, everybody knows that this is just a game people are playing. Like, this isn't true. We're all people. We're all connected. You know what I'm saying? Like, this life is about, being... My mom taught me kindness. My mom, even though I was kind of void of emotion, my mom is the one that rear-ended me and really showed me how to be kind and be compassionate and how to treat people. Off of this principle of loving your neighbor. She didn't really use the principle, but she made sure that I got it. So when I went into high school... Up until this point, I went to all private schools, and I went to all private black schools. Most people don't know that. There's a lot out there like that. And I went to an all private white school. And when I went to this all private white school, it was actually my first time seeing a white person. And like I went to school with like a white guy, but his dad was like black. Even though he looked white, he was black. And so I went to this white school, and the first guy I went up to, I was like, oh, hey, like, just introducing myself to some of the people there. They said, hey. And then turned their head. And I'm like this, wait a minute. No, my dad gave me a lot of confidence. I'm Derek Carrington. Like, this doesn't function with me. So I'm going to introduce myself to somebody else. And the same thing kept happening. And like being in church, I didn't fit. I fit with my neighborhood kids, kind of. I did fit with my neighborhood kids. But in church, I didn't fit. And my neighborhood kids, as they got older, I didn't fit because they started participating in certain activities that I didn't participate in. And then at school, I didn't really fit. So I'm in this thing where I don't really fit, but more than being fit, in high school I started receiving a lot of hatred. And it wasn't by the students necessarily, it was by the staff. And the staff they told one guy that I knew ahead of me, like, yo, go hang yourself from a tree. It told me, one teacher got in my class and said, Derek, I don't like you. And I understand the reason why the rest of your classmates don't like you. So at this time, I had a lot of confidence, but I didn't realize that all these things that I was going through was slowly tearing down the self-confidence that my parents had took such a long time to make an investment in. And it would be instances where these teachers don't like me, and it would be for no reason at all. Like my show choir teacher, she didn't like me. And the other students knew that she didn't like me, and it was like a joke. It was like, why doesn't she like Derek so much? Nobody knows. It was like a funny type joke. And at this time, this thing of being misunderstood continued to happen. And the reason why the teacher got up and said that statement was, at the school, they would draw genitalia on your backpacks, male genitalia on your backpacks. They would flip it inside out and they will draw mail genitalia. And I told the teacher, I'm not going to watch my backpack anymore. This is ridiculous. My parents are paying over 10 grand for me to go to this school. This doesn't make any sense. Like, and then he got up and said that statement. And because I was like, I'm not going to watch my backpack. This is ridiculous. So that was the reason why that teacher led to that comment. So now my self-confidence or whatnot is being down, but I still believe in the principles of the Bible. I still believe like you still love your neighbor. It's just for some reason it ain't like, it's just I'm hitting these roadblocks that I don't get. So now come to find out at the end of my come to find out at the end of my senior year, we had this community service project. And one of the guys that kind of gave me a lot of slack in that teacher's class that did that and was one of the main contributors of me flipping my backpack, we did a community service project inside on southwest side of Detroit with the Hispanic kids, and we worked together. And he says, "Oh my gosh, Derek, you're such a cool guy." I said, I went through all of this Sheol or hell for you to finally at my senior year say, "Oh, Derek, you're such a cool guy." I'm like, yeah, did it? No, bro. Like it was like, so what I'm going through is this weird exchange where for some reason I'm not fitting, and I don't know why. So it moves on to going into college. Now, going into college, I had this church, and before going to college, we went on a missionary trip in California, and I liked it so much I wanted to give my year of my life to go on this missionary trip. It was like the most amazing experience I've ever had. And I had learned about Paul and the lessons that Paul was doing, and Paul seemed like the most amazing guy to me. Then I said, "Oh my gosh, I want to be just like Paul. I want to go out there, travel the world. Like I'm not having sex, even though people in my high school are having sex and they're doing all this nonsense. I'm going to give my life like Paul. Like I'm about to go out here and preach this message, this gospel. Like that's what I'm going to be about. That was my aim. So when I finished high school, I wasn't that astute of a student, but I said to myself, I'm done with the school thing. I'm never going to do it again. Like I'm going to make my own way. I'm going to make my own way being an entrepreneur. But by the time that I really had the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, my parents had already kind of set it up, so I'm going to school. So I ended up going to Howard University. And even even though the school had 100% high school to graduation rate, going high school to college rate, like going to college really wasn't, it was out of my, even though my mom had her master's, it was still out of my possibility. Like I just couldn't see myself going to college. Like it sounded nice, it sounded cool, but I was just glad I passed high school. Like I was like, that was like the the epitome for me. Like I was fine. So I finally go to school, and it was actually a counselor, last piece. It was actually a counselor that told me about HBCUs. I didn't know what an HBCU was. I went to Howard University, and he was the one that told me, just to verify the experience that I had at that school. Oh, and this is where the high school is important. Okay. So he told me, you had enough of this experience. And I showed him some other schools that were predominantly white to go to. He says, you had enough of that. You need to go to a HBCU. And this was actually a white staff member that told me this. So he surprised my mom, and that's why I actually chose to go to a HBCU. Now, in school, my sophomore year, out of everything that I learned, the only lesson that I kept to was one lesson inside of my religions class. And it was I, thou, I, it relationships. I, thou is person to person. I, it is person to object. And seeing that us in society treat people as objects rather than people. And that was one lesson that added on to my faith. Because once I saw, and it added on to loving your neighbor as yourself, specifically women, is that I realized that the society that I lived in taught me how to treat women as objects. And I went to all boys high school. So they taught me to treat women as objects rather than people. So I began to work my hardest to treat women as people. And that meant, the Messiah said, do not lust. I learned that lesson in school. So what would I do? I would turn my eyes and I would make sure that I didn't look at women's body parts when I walked past them. I would slowly try to actually embody all these lessons that I learned that the Messiah was teaching in very practical ways by turning my eyes, not saying anything. But at the same time, the high school really confused you. Like this is supposed to be this high school that's about faith, but when it comes to school dances, the priests are right there while you're grinding on these young ladies, and I'm confused. I'm in a mind warp. I'm like, we ain't supposed to be doing this, right? But everybody's going along with it like it's perfectly fine, and it was very confusing, and it was very, very confusing. So I move on to I go into college, and in college I had got built up with so much confidence and so much love that I got built up with so much confidence, so much love that when it came to stress, I didn't stress. I didn't know what stress was. When I went to school, I already thought everything outside of this is just extra credit. So I just thought, like, I'm going to do my thing, and I wanted to go back to that missionary trip, but my mom said, no, you're going to go to school. You can do that after you graduate college if you really want to do it. So at my time in school, I'm telling everybody about this missionary trip that I really want to go on while I'm at school. So everybody has this anticipation for me to go into this missionary trip. And in time in school, I'm joining all these Bible studies. So I'm going to take a pause real quick, and I'm going to jump back because this is a very important piece that I left out. That when I was 15 years old, my parents got divorced. And that divorce, a lot of people say things are nice. Like, people say, oh, we just get divorced. But the effects of a divorce in a marriage are so destructive that in that time, looking back, I built a hatred towards my mom. And I didn't really have a hatred towards my dad. I had a disdain. And because of everything that transpired inside of that divorce. And it made me into a person where I had to sit and I had to watch and I had to analyze. If I didn't analyze what was going on, I would have went crazy. So when I went to school, I didn't want to go to school. But I went to school so I can escape the turmoil that was happening within my family. That was my real reason for even I could have said, like, to my parents, no, I don't really want to go, like, we can end this. But I really used school as an exit so I can escape all the turmoil that was happening in the household. The divorce happened when I was like 15 or whatnot, and I discussed with my mom before this interview, and it really was night and day. It was like she went, filed the paperwork. The next day, it was terrible. And that divorce actually damaged the relationship between me and my brother that is now being healed, 12 years later. So it really tarnished a lot of good things, that were going on. So in school, I'm still building my faith, whatnot. It's the first night. So in Howard University, everybody is assigned to a dorm. And in the dorm, there's like this dorm camaraderie. It's kind of like a fraternity without being in a fraternity, every dorm that you stay in. And in the dorm, they have the first night where everybody introduces themselves and people get up and they say one thing about themselves, or if you want to say something. So some guys are getting up and they're like, man, I just want to meet some women, and like in my mind, like everybody's like, I hope you do. Like, I hope you don't want to meet me. But I stand up, I get my chance, and I'm like this, because I already been warned that college was going to be a testing of your faith and whatnot. So I'm like, I'm about to pass this test. So I get up and I said, I'm a man of God. I want to know where the other men of God are. I'm going to host a Bible study in my room. I can't wait to see you guys. Like, I'm like out here like Paul. Like, let's get it. Like, we're gonna do this thing. Lo and behold, that whole semester, nobody showed up to my room for that Bible study. And the thing was, what I started to realize that in college, it really was a testing of what you believed. A lot of people were finally free for the first time. I never was really that restricted. So at home, another thing that was attractive to the Bible for me, at home, I didn't have chores. Everybody in my neighborhood had chores. I didn't have chores. So when the Bible gave me, it was like people were mad about stuff that I was never mad about, like this. I didn't have chores. It was very free will in my household, but I did follow the rules because I just felt like I should follow them. So I'm in college and I try to do the Bible studies, not working. I'm going to different Bible studies left and right. And in one Bible study, they're saying or one meeting, like gathering, they're saying in chapel it's called, that they're everybody's going around saying their favorite artist. Everybody's going around the circle saying their favorite artist, and they're saying Lil Wayne or Jeezy and all these different artists. And I'm holding my head like, Father, where are your people? Like you can't love the Father and love Jesus. You can't love the Father and love 2 Chainz. You can't love the Father and love Lil Wayne. They go against each other. It doesn't make sense. But no, it didn't seem like anybody there really connected with me. But so it actually was my sophomore year that I found a guy named Calvin. Shout out to Calvin. And Calvin was the guy that I went to a whole bunch of Bible studies with or whatnot. But even with the guy that I really was the coolest with, I didn't know the struggles that Calvin was having with his faith. It was kind of not prevalent to me because I was in school of business and he was in another school, so we would only see each other when we would go inside the dorm. So he was participating in activities that I wasn't aware of. And it was kind of like when I would go out, I would profess his faith, but I have somebody with me that's not fully committed like I am. So it's kind of like, what is Derak really about? And I didn't know that was kind of going on. But later on, the Father actually showed me around some people who were kind of, and that's my boy Wallace, who was kind of like really about the Father's word. And even there, I also met this great guy named Charlie, who led a lot of Bible studies and helped me having somebody I can kind of talk to. And that helped me in my college experience. But I would say that the college experience really was a testing of the faith. And even in that college experience, I think another thing that I used to build my faith was I had this phone. I lose a lot of stuff. Would you guys agree? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I had this phone that I would lose all the time. And I would always pray to the Father, Father, please bring my phone back to me. And my phone would always come back to me. So I lost it about 8 times. And then I actually got an iPhone later on, and I actually had a cheaper phone so I can kind of ensure that the Father would bring my phone back to me, kind of helping him out so nobody would steal it. But when I got the iPhone and I lost it, I was like, oh man, people are really going to steal this. I'm never going to get it back. And I was like, Father, please bring it back. But the Father actually did bring it back. Along my college experience, from kindergarten to 16 and there was a few other girls, I kissed or whatnot. But there was a girl that I met on Howard's campus, and she liked me, right? And I think this is for believers who are really trying to walk this thing out, and I think this will touch you. She actually liked me, and I didn't know why at the time that was so significant for me, but I figured it out later, actually this year or last year, why it was so significant for me. The reason why it was because she liked me for me. And up until that point, my parents didn't believe me about my faith walk. The people who were supposed to love me the most, my mom, my dad, did not believe me when I said that I wasn't participating in certain activities. So, in essence, they didn't believe me. And the thing was, I was only doing what they told me to do, but I actually did it. So, that pain, I didn't know it created such a deep pain of not being accepted or not being seen for yourself, that when this girl came into my life and she said, Derak, I like you, my heart started to open up in a way that I never even knew my heart wasn't open. And it became the 16-year-old thing again, but it went too far. And when it went too far, I was actually pledging for a fraternity at this time, and I was in her apartment, and when I left the apartment, I heard the Father say to me, I didn't hear the Father say anything, but what I heard I knew at that moment when I left that apartment, walking back to the fraternity, we had this fraternity event, I saw that the Father had turned his face against me. And it was such a deep pain. It's kind of like your girlfriend breaks up with you. Nobody else knows, but only you know. Like the Father broke his relationship with me, and I was in so much pain walking down that street. I go into this place where I actually get inducted into the fraternity. I get inducted into the fraternity, but I'm miserable, and I can't tell anybody. And I actually did tell somebody that I feel like the Father's turned his face against me. And there's nobody to console me. Like it's this pain where I'm like, Father, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. After that feeling, it was so pain. I went to that girl and I was like, you know what? We have two different faiths. This actually won't work out. I actually haven't uphold your heart. I actually took this way too far. I shouldn't have did this. And I separated. Still didn't stop the pain. The Father's face was still against me, and only through time did I feel like the Father was back again. But it was nothing that was immediate. Now, one thing that about the fraternity is that I joined. This is a backwards thinking, but I think a lot of people have this backwards thinking as well. I knew that the Father was supreme, and I knew that He was the Almighty. But I watched this movie Skull and Crossbones with my parents one time, and it showed that to be successful, you needed to sign a pact with the organization that was secret. So I knew the Father was supreme, but all I want to do is use that influence I have to help people. So I was very willing and very open to joining a very dark organization so I can gain power and influence so I can help other people. Very backwards thinking, but that's what I was thinking. So I decided there was other organizations that wanted me to become a part, but I didn't take them up on their offer because they were like, it's like this, like they would beat you up to be. I was like, I'm not gonna get beat up for no friends. But the organization I chose was a business fraternity, and part of the induction process after the thing with the girl happened. It was that night. They lit fake candles, and in my heart, not out my mouth, in my heart, I said, this is the type of dark stuff I've been looking for. And it wasn't really too dark. We didn't sign no blood or anything like that. But that was my heart disposition. Later on, I learned like I was completely wrong. And even right now, I do need to rescind my thing with that organization. But that was truly my heart disposition, that to be successful, I didn't understand that to be successful, you can follow the Father's commandments. I didn't even know what they were. But all I knew was that if I joined this dark organization, that I could. And my friend actually that I pledged with, Angelo Wong, love him, great guy. He got approached by the Masons to be a part. And I said to myself, why haven't I been approached by the Masons? I would love to be a Mason. I would love to gain more power. And the thing was, thankfully he didn't listen to my advice. I'm like, bro, come on, man, it's more power. Like go do it. Right? He didn't do it. And I'm glad that he didn't do it. But I really wanted to do it so I can gain more power, but the Father protected me and by not giving me that opportunity to become a Mason. And so I'm in my mind's view, I'm just like, man, I gotta, like, it's not because I believe in it. It's like this, I just need the connection. I just need that other connection that I don't have, so I can maneuver the system. After watching that movie, I realized, because in the movie it said like the governors and there's leaders and senators, they're all part of this secret organization. I'm like, this is clearly how you succeed. This is clearly how you make it. But I suggest everybody read Deuteronomy 28 on how you truly succeed. So after college, so college is coming. My senior year is actually coming to an end, and I actually did find out the name of the Father when I was in school. At this time, I said Yahweh, and I was going crazy. I was like, Yahweh, man, you the man. And I was like, man, this is great, man. Like Hebrew, I was like, oh man, this is great. So it's going great at this time, and it's coming to a point. I finally finished my degree or whatnot, and I decide to go back on that thing I wanted to do before I went to school, go on the missionary trip. I go on the missionary trip, and even in college there was another girl that I did talk to, but it was never no kissing or anything like that. We just went on one date or whatnot. But and then there was I think about a few other girls that I went on dates with or whatnot. But there was no kissing or anything like that. But I'm saying that I went on these dates because I need to say something that a little bit later. So I went on these dates with these girls, and towards my end of my senior year, my fourth year at school, there's stuff happening at home, and I tell my mom, come up to DC with me, let's get an apartment, and you can escape whatever's happening at home, that tension that's happening at home. So she comes to DC, and up until this point, me and my mom do not have the best of relationships. She has a great relationship with my She has a great relationship with my brother, but she doesn't have a great relationship with me. So I say to my mom, so we're living with each other, and it gets to a point where my mom is nagging me about everything that I do. And I tell my mom, you know what, Mom? You say that you love me. I think you do. But I don't think that you like me. So, and my mom denied it. No, I like you. I was like, no, Mom, you don't like me. You don't like me at all. Because people that like me, they don't treat me like you treat me. You don't like me at all. And me and my mom actually had a deep hatred for each other at this point. Even though we were staying together, we had a hatred. And I had a hatred for my mom as well because of that divorce and the things that went happen. And I said, and even in the divorce, there was a scene that happened that my mom was in a very down state. And I asked my mom 3 times, and because of the manipulation that was happening and everything, families against each other, I asked my mom, like, Mom, do you love me? No, my mom asked me, do you love me? And I said, Mom, I love you. And she said this 3 times. And in the 3 times that she asked, I said, Mom, I love you. And she didn't believe me. And after she didn't believe me, it kind of left me like, all right, like, okay. Like, it was nothing I could do to prove it. You know what I'm saying? So it was such a disconnect in that divorce that I was disconnected from my mom, disconnected from my dad. I'm by myself. And it even got to the point in the divorce where my dad was saying negative things about my mom. And I told him, listen, me, I don't need you, man. You can go your separate way. I'll go my separate way. My life will be completely fine. I'll make my own way. And this was at 16 that I said that statement to him. When I was a freshman in high school. I said, I don't need nothing you got to say. But then he said, oh, I'm sorry. Get back in the car. I had got out the car and started walking away. And so my mom, now I'm living with my mom. And one of the main things I have hatred for my mom is because I think anytime I'm with her, things are going to fail. Anytime I'm with her, everything's going to go into chaos. But what I find out living with my mom, I thought because the first week that she moved in, we had agreed on some stuff and she didn't do what she had promised, and it blew into a whole argument. I'm like, oh God, like, why did I even decide to do this? But after that point, slowly and surely, my mom, me and her started taking walks. Me and my mom started going to the grocery store, because in DC you can do anything. Me and my mom started walking everywhere, and we would do walks at night, and we'll do different activities and different events. And what I began to see was that my mom wasn't the chaos. That my mom, things didn't go bad when I was with my mom. That me and my mom actually began to build a new relationship, and everything that happened in the past, we made new experiences, more and more experiences, to the point where my heart began to open in a way that I never felt before. It was kind of like the girl that I talked to in school, but it was the one that I messed up with. But the one that I messed up with, and I went too far with, more than messed up. It just went too far, and my heart began to open for my mom, and I began to feel like this love that I haven't felt. I just hadn't felt. I didn't know that this part of my heart was closed. So in that moment, when after me and my mom's relationship was built back up, because I tell the people in the podcast that me and my mom hated each other, and they won't believe me at all. And is the fact that if I didn't fix that relationship with my mother, I could never have been in any relationship with any woman. The reason why, even the girls that I had talked to before, they were the most nicest, most sweetest people that I have met. I was not ready to be in a relationship with them because I had so much anger towards my mom. I knew at that time I had to fix it, but I felt like I could maneuver around it. But the love that I felt from those young ladies, like when they said that they liked me, it overwhelmed me. It was too much, because nobody likes me. I wasn't liked in high school. I wasn't liked by my parents. People say nice things about me. Oh, Derek, I'm so proud of you. But the way that they show their actions, it doesn't line up. They mock. They make fun of me. You know what I'm saying? So it was a very hard, very, very, very hard experience. Okay. There's something in college that I might want to say that I'll go back to, but okay. So, So I finally, I'm with my mom. We built up our relationship. I finished my last, my tenure at school, and I actually get offered a job by Sodexo, a company I worked for about 3 years as a student intern, and I turned down that job offer to go on this missionary trip. Hindsight 2020, maybe I should have just said, just hold on, let me I'll take the job offer. Let me just go on the missionary trip real quick. Just give me an absence leave. I should have did that, but I didn't. So I say that to the employer, and I'm like, I'm gonna turn it down. He looking at me like, Derek, but you've been working out for us like 3 years. Like, what are you doing? And I didn't really like process what I should do, because at this time I'm thinking I'm about to live my Paul life. Like, I haven't told nobody this. Like, I went to school for my parents, but I'm about to go live my Paul life. And even when I went to school, I'll tell you this: going to school, high school people hated me. College people loved me. I was pretty much a celebrity in college. And the only difference was the environment. Not that much about me changed. So it was really the environment that I was in that was just so negative. So in college, I was able to rebuild the person that was taken away from that high school experience that I had to endure. So now I turned down the job offer. I go on the missionary trip. The first 2 weeks are great. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm so happy. Like, I'm finally doing what I want to do. I'm about to live my life like Paul. And then the grass really wasn't as green as I thought it would be. I'm walking through the parking lot, and one of the girls say to me, "What's up, my in?" And I'm like, huh? And this is a young white lady, and I'm like, why me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Me? Like, moi? Like, you don't do that. So that happened, and then later on, sex, drugs started happening in the program. 700 Club, we went on the TV show. They paid us to go on there, the missionary trip. We started serving hot dogs to the homeless that aren't even cooked and are raw, and the people are getting sick, and this organization is promising so much, but they can only deliver on so little. There's so many things that are just distorted. The leader of the program keeps quoting Paul, but he keeps quoting Paul wrong. It got to a point where we're reading all these books about the Bible, but not reading the Bible. I beg the whole leadership staff, can we just read one book of the Bible? And I think we read Romans. We read the book of Romans, and people in the program, first off, didn't have Bibles. And normally, like this missionary trip, what I learned, a lot of missionaries are like kids who don't really know where they want to go, so they kind of choose missionary work, and some do, and I'm like, what? But there was a older program I could have been a part of, but I thought it was like kind of like a Bible study learning, so I can get, but it wasn't that. And I tried to switch into the older one, but I couldn't. And even the people in the older one said, yo, bro, you do not want to be in that program, like in various ways. So I and that program's name is the Dream Center. And so what happened was all these things started happening, and I got them to read one book of Romans, and people are in the program saying, oh my gosh, I never read one book of the Bible before. I never read one book. And up until this point, which I left out, I've always read Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. I love wisdom. Even when I was 12, I prayed for wisdom. I prayed for wisdom, and I prayed to be 6'3". The Father didn't give that to me; gave it to my brother. But I did pray to be. I prayed for wisdom consistently every night. I was just praying, Father, give me more wisdom, because I was taught that wisdom is the key to everything else. If you have wisdom, then you can get everything else. So I was like, let me get wisdom, then everything else will be added on to me, right? So that was my thought process. So I already read a few books of the Bible. I haven't read the whole thing, but people haven't read one book, and they're reading it, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I've never read this before. And I'm like, well, let's read some more Bible. And they're like, no, we got this other help book about the Bible, So that ended very quickly. And so then it gets to a point where I'm having doctrinal debates with the director of the program. And so what happens was, after I see that, we read the book of Romans, we go on a Christmas break. Now, before Christmas break, this is what stopped me from celebrating Christmas. I think it was in college, I'm unsure, or maybe it was like at the Dream Center. The Boondocks. People remember the Boondocks. It was a great series. Stewie, there was an episode where Stewie tells Grandpa that Jesus ain't real. And Jesus probably hates you for celebrating Christmas. When I saw that episode, I said, oh my God, Jesus hates me? And I looked up what they said about Saturnalia in the episode. I'm like, this stuff is real? Like, Saturnalia is like, this is like legit. Like, this is like some real stuff. Like, Saturnalia is real. I was like, okay, I'm done. like you can have that Christmas. Like, Jesus ain't gonna hate me, right? So I stopped celebrating Christmas, and that brought anger with my parents as well. So I started. So when I was at the Dream Center, I had already stopped celebrating Christmas. A lot of the kids went back home. Like, we're on a missionary trip. Why are we going home? We go to. I stay in my room and I start fasting. I fasted for about 5 days. I slowly stopped eating and whatnot, and I just drank water during that 5-day fast. And during that fast, I just read the Bible. I read Matthew. I think I got up to, I don't know. I got pretty far. I think I got up to like 1 John maybe. Like, I just kept reading. And I would read and read and read and read and read. And the only way for time to go faster was if I read. If I didn't read, time seemed like it was at the slowest moment ever. So I would just read, and try to go to sleep. But I didn't eat, so I would wake up even quicker because my body was not processing anything. So when people came back, I had read enough. And I kept reading when people had came back. And it got to a point where he had said some things about Paul, the director, and me and him got into a dispute about it. Went into his office and got in dispute. And I was like, you're misinterpreting Paul. Paul didn't say that. And I was like, Paul doesn't say that. And he was like, I was like, you should listen to leadership has been placed in your life for you to believe. Don't question us, just trust us. I said, Paul don't say that. Paul doesn't say that at all. So what happens to me being kicked out of the program was me and the director got into a debate. He got really mad. And then we were talking. There was a thing called Adopt a Block that happened on Saturday where you go to different blocks and you help out. And the director, me and him were talking outside, and it went from a simple conversation to a yelling match. And me and him are both yelling at the top of our lungs outside, and some people are passing by. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you don't know. And I'm like, you keep on misinterpreting the scripture, and woe to you, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And me and him are going back and back, and he's saying, no, you don't know scripture. And I'm like, no, you don't know scripture, because I try to tell you, and you can't even understand the basics of what Paul is saying. Like, this is ridiculous. You're leading everybody in this program astray, and you said that other people were like me that came to this program that you kicked out, and I'm just saying this is another warning to you, and you need to listen, because this is ridiculous. Now, the thing that was happening inside of the program was also there was secret Bible studies happening where people would talk about the Aleph Tav, and people would talk about the order of Melchizedek. But those Bible studies you had to be invited to. So there were people that were secretly disagreeing with what was being taught here, but nobody was. You had to be invited. So I accidentally got invited to one of these Bible studies. And the guy asked a question at the Bible study, who is Melchizedek? And he asked, first I was like, who is Melchizedek? I didn't know who Melchizedek was. And then he asked, because I hadn't got to Genesis yet. I was still reading. And he said, I don't know the answer to the question. I'm just asking. I'm like, who asked a question you don't know the answer to? This is ridiculous. Like, are you playing with me, man? So he was dead up serious. He did not know the answer to the question, and it pissed me off. Like, who asked questions? So this idea of asking questions to gain knowledge but not necessarily knowing the answer was a very new concept to me. Normally people ask questions, they just want you to get it right. So to actually see somebody that doesn't know the answer to the question was very, very profound for me. So I finally the last day before I get kicked out of the program, I use my roommate's car. I drive all around LA, have the most beautiful time ever. They paid for my plane ticket, $400 just to get me out. That says I was a problem. And I didn't take it. I waited and I paid my own. I stayed a little bit longer. I wasn't going to be bought out. So I go back home and I'm just reading the Bible. Just reading, highlighting, just studying. And I just tell my parents I need this time just to read, and they give me that opportunity. But even in them, my dad's still cracking jokes. And even some of the female friends that I have that did stop by to visit me, my dad's still questioning, you didn't do nothing with her? You didn't do it. And my mom is like kind of a little bit on it too. And my brother's definitely in on it. And they're like this, you didn't do nothing with her? Her? And I'm just like, man, she my friend, bro. You tripping. And so I continue to read. I get to the end of it. I finally finish Malachi. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. I get it. But at home, I read about the Sabbath. I get to Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah is what convinced me that the Sabbath was supposed to be followed, and nobody was going to tell me anything different. So when I got to Nehemiah, Nehemiah's saying that he was going to beat me or beat the people. I felt like he was going to beat me. And so when I said that, I was like, okay, I'm going to definitely follow the Sabbath thing. I don't care what nobody said. So following the Sabbath, I got turmoil from my parents, and you're doing too much, blah, 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 blah. But I read. And anytime that they tried to challenge me, I would throw a scripture that they didn't know at them, and then thus the conversation would cease. And when I was at the Dream Center, what happened, what made me read the Bible even more, was I would depend on my parents so much for their biblical wisdom, but it got to a point where they didn't know the answer to the questions that I had. So I had to read because they didn't know anymore. So I began to read. So I'm reading. Cannot find a job for the life of me. And I'm interviewing, and this honesty, or this father's honest, I want to be honest too. I'm beginning to be more and more honest. Just honest. And you're not supposed to be too honest when your job is like this. How long are you going to work for? Well, I'm going to at least work 3 years. So I would lose a lot of job offers because I would say the stuff that as Paul says, speak so people can hear you, that fit that environment. I didn't use wisdom with my answers. I was just trying to be pure. I was trying to be set apart. And so I got offered a lot of positions through connections, but I would not get them. And I did not know what was happening. It seemed like my life was coming to a standstill. And then I remember the Dream Center and how terrible it was. And I was like, man, I really should have took that job offer that I got offered. Like, what the freak am I doing here? Like, I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I am Baroque. And I'm at home. And this is not appealing to me at all. And that lasted for about, I had some side jobs, but but the side jobs wasn't me. And then the thing was, even the jobs that I was getting offered, I disagreed with morally. So, like, my friend, he worked for an oil company. I can't go work for that company because the oil does terrible things. I don't want to be a part of any organization that has an underlying evil. So what do? It requires me to be an entrepreneur, but I don't have enough money to build up to be an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? And then the things of entrepreneurship, that might not be certain things that I want to do. So I'm kind of like restricting myself in certain ways. It's like this. Well, it's like it got to the point where it's like, well, materials is this company using? I disagree with that. I don't want to be a part of that. So I started to really box myself in, and as my morals began to grow, it really became hard to find something that I agree with. But I did. So it got to a point where. Okay, it got to a point where like nothing was working, but I knew what the Father had to say for me. And at this time, I had studied the Bible, and I saw the cycle. You fall into sin, you go in obedience, sin, obedience. And I saw the cycle, and I was like, okay, I just need to follow what the Father says. Got you. So I been going to different congregations, couldn't find one that I agree with. I went to this one that actually Bremen and Will testified about, but I didn't see them when I went there. I went there 2 times, and I just missed them. Then later on, I went back on, and it was too far away. Didn't have a car at the time, and that really enraged me at the time too. I'm like, man, like I really should just took this job. Should never went this missionary trip, and I could have paid off this student debt by now, and been rolling. But what I didn't know is that time, and even like I'm still in it a little bit, but is part of that desert experience. It's part of that wilderness experience of refining, of who are you going to choose in this time where you don't have adequate or enough of what you think that you might need. You don't have the food from Egypt, but will you survive the wilderness experience? Will you cling to your Adonai? Will you cling to your Elohim? Will you cling to your God to get out of there? And that's one lesson that the Father is definitely teaching me, that I must cling to Him no matter what, and that's where I'm going to rest my head. So it gets to a point where I am I find a church actually, BYA, and I go there. I walk in and it was great. I met my boy Bremen. I met Will. I met Kenny. I didn't think I met Will yet. I met Melissa and I met Kenny, and I'm very excited. Like I say how enthusiastic to everybody that I am to be here. That I can find people that actually enjoy talking about scripture, because up to this point, every revelation I have, I'm reading through the Bible, I'm just calling my mom. Oh my gosh, Mom! Did you see what happened? Did you see what Nehemiah said? Did you see what David did? Oh my gosh! Did you see that? Like when I read the Bible, it was like a storybook. And that's also one of the reasons why I didn't do so good in school, was because I didn't like reading books, because I got too emotionally attached to books. And I didn't like false stories being in my heart. So when I read the Bible, it's truth. So I was okay with reading it, and actually reading the Bible, my reading comprehension and all that got healed because of me studying the Bible. So even when I wrote a paper recently, and my mother and like somebody I trust said it was a PhD level, and it was very like, man. Even when I was in high school, I knew it was going to take me a long time to learn how to perfect my writing, but I didn't know it was going to be after I graduated college. Like, dang, it was a long time, like 10 years, brother. All right, it's long. All right, so because I didn't like to read, because it just made me too emotional. So when I'm at BYA, that's cool. Things still aren't working out for me, and I'm ready to go. And I'm like, okay, let me go back to what I actually liked. I went to school for finance. I didn't want to do finance. I actually wanted to be a therapist, and my parents disagreed with that. So they disagreed with that. So I said I want to do directing or acting, and they said no. But I actually did directing my my 5th year there, and I got an A in the class, and I actually directed a play with one of the directors. It was a beautiful experience. And I said, well, let me go back to DC. I called the connections that I had, and I'm gonna really shoot for this directing career. I'll be in the marketing department, and I'll really shoot for it. So I say I'm done with Detroit. I'm about to go back to DC, have my living arrangements set. I'm about to actually make this thing happen. So I'm going to the airport. I get there 2 hours early. I start talking to the lady that's next to me, and as we're about to get onto the plane, and the lady next to me, we're having a great conversation. I fall asleep. I wake up. Now, remember, I came 2 hours before. I talked to the lady next to me, and the terminal was only seven seats on the side of me. And I wake up, and I hear a voice say, "Do not go." And I heard it, and I was like, man, I don't got time for that. Like, I was like, I don't got time for that. So I go to the gate, and I'm like, why didn't you call me? And they just boarded, like, just closed. She's like, you didn't hear me call you? I was sitting right there. She said, well, we can reschedule you, but you'll leave at like 7 o'clock or something like that. You're leaving at 7 o'clock, so that's like 6-hour wait right inside the airport from when I was supposed to leave. And so I finally get on the plane, and I go to DC, and I go to interview for this job or whatnot. And the whole time I'm there, I'm getting paranoid. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. 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 I'm calling friends. Yo, what does this mean? Like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And like, the paranoia is starting to build and build and build and build and build even more, to the point where I'm freaking out. Like, it's not healthy. My mom's thinking I'm going crazy. Like I'm in DC, and she's like, come home. Like I'm only there for like two or 3 days. And I'm like no, 6 days or something like that. And it's getting like bad. Like the paranoia is building. I meet this guy named Elijah Moses, super holy. And after I had already read the Bible, and he says to me, he asked me a simple question: how many pairs of each animal does Noah go into the ark? And I can't answer the question. And he really shows me that even though I think that I know as much as I know, he humbled me with that simple question, because I could not get it right. And if anybody in this video said 2, please go. Well, if anybody said 2, please go to Genesis 7, read 1 through 4. And if you want to have a further conversation on that, we can do it. But so I go talk to Elijah Moses, and Elijah Moses tells me that he wants me to go join his camp, and that's in New York. And I'm like, bro, why can't you just give me a syllabus of what you learned? Like, I don't need to go to no camp. Like, I'm open to knowledge, but I'm not open to you. And he's seen because I told him, like, I haven't had sex, and he's like this. Oh man, he's looking at me like a jewel. and he's looking at me like a jewel, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, right? And but I'm like this, bro, I'm not gonna go. He says, well, go pray to the Father, and come back to me when he gives you an answer. So I told him I pray, and the Father didn't give me an answer. He says, what? Starts yelling at me. he's like this. Didn't I tell you to pray? You didn't get an answer from the Father? I'm like, whoa, chill out, bro. Like, and I guess that was my clear sign that that's not where I was supposed to be. So, but I did get the lesson from him. So I finally go back home. I'm freaking paranoid. Like, I'm glad I got back home, and I get home and I still don't have my answer, and I'm mad that I'm in this situation. I'm mad that I'm not answering questions right. I'm mad that I'm being so honest. I'm mad that I'm like trying to follow the Father so much in a way, but I know I know that he's true, that I go on a 7-day fast. No water, no food, and I'm just hoping for the Father to give me an answer, to show me something, but he doesn't give me anything. But after I get out of the fast, I get a job, like right after somebody calls me to give a job. So I was like, oh, okay, that's the Father. But that job didn't really work out. It was the owner. It was a small company, and I like working for small companies, but it was the owner, and that lasted for about a year, and then I moved to somewhere else, and what I learned, okay, then I moved somewhere else. So what I learned in this time period about following the path of the Messiah is that we're indoctrinated when we grow up, but that true rebirth, in my personal opinion, is the rebirth of your mindset completely. And that rebirth of mindset takes time. So when you're slowly changing your mindset and changing your actions, the society that you live in does not support the things of the Bible. So no matter what you adopt, whether it's not stealing or killing, the rest of society will not agree with your decisions because the society is not built on the foundation of the Word. So as I continue in the honesty that the Bible teaches me that I'm supposed to have, I'm continually getting rejected. And that rejection that I received from high school, the rejection that I received from other places, was because I wanted to live a certain type of life. I wanted to live a life of peace, live a life with the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5, 19 through 23 or 17 through 23. I wanted to live those fruits out, and those fruits of the Spirit, but society did not want me to do those things. And that caused a lot of turmoil, so much so that when it comes to, I learned the pain of misunderstanding. So people misunderstand you, they'll reject you. So it's best to avoid misunderstanding. So even when, even for the jobs one job that I did, I lost. It was a supervisor there who actually lied on me. But the thing is, if a supervisor lies on you, there's no way you can correct it, because people are going to believe the supervisor over you, even though it was a clear, very, very, very clear lie. So, I continue to study, and when I meet these group of people at BYA that are on the podcast and others, they open up their arms to me, and I've never been around people who are actually excited about the Father. I've been to people I met some good people when I was in college, but I never seen people that were actually excited about the Father. Attending the fellowship I attend now, BYA, it really has opened my heart, and it really has gave me a challenge of actually learning the Father's Word, and actually a challenge of growing. And for that challenge of growing, I'm really, 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 really thankful. I'm really, really thankful that I see the Father's truth in a full way, and hopefully that my eyes have been a little bit more open, and my ears have opened up a little bit as well. So the dream that I had at the beginning, just so I can finish this up. So when I dreamed as a kid about the dream that I had in the beginning, I went to the movie. My mom was in DC, or whenever the movie I, Robot came out. Me and my mom went to go see that movie. At the end of the movie, in I, Robot, the robot is standing up in front of people, and they are listening to him to guide them on where they're going, right? When I saw that movie and I saw that scene, it's as if somebody went in my dream and copied exactly what happened. The only difference between the movie and the dream is that I was standing on the bridge that was connected. It wasn't broken like in the I, Robot the movie. It was connected. I was standing on the bridge and I was talking to the people on the land, but they were very close to me. It was kind of weird. They were very close to me. And the people listened to everything that I said. So when I saw it in the movie I, Robot, it was freaky because somebody heard me. So I know that dream is still to come true. Recently, just now I've been dreaming just a lot of dreams. And I'm thankful for the Father to give me somebody that can interpret them. I'm thankful for the Father giving me people around me that can value and that they also appreciate people that actually study the Word and make Bible jokes, And Bible jokes are actually very hilarious if you know what the Bible says. And I encourage everybody to make an effort to say them. I think this is the end. Oh, okay. So in this, okay. Well, I guess I can say this. So one thing, I think, okay, this is pretty much the end of my testimony. I'm going to say one more thing because just things that I forgot. That one of the reasons why I didn't fit in university was that I did not self-pleasure. And the people in the men's Bible study, they had a deep Bible study one day, right? We're gonna put the topic on the floor, self-pleasure. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I actually don't do that. And not one of the dudes in there believed me. And I was like, bro, I really don't. Like, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. Like it doesn't just. I'm just not built that way, I guess, and they just didn't believe me, so that kind of kicked me out too. But hey, what I'm saying? I've been following the Father, and I love him with my whole heart. And anybody that has dealt with the pain of divorce, you like to talk, find me on Instagram or Facebook. If anybody has is going on their journey and they really I found I have been abstinent for a long time. Did do some things that I shouldn't have did, but I've been abstinent. And if you would like to, talk about like really walking out of abstinence, because I got that plank out of my eye, then I'm all for it. And I hope my testimony has encouraged you. I really hope this for those people who are really serious about that walk, no matter what age you are. Don't allow the people that you love most and their disapproval through their actions of what you do discourage you from walking out something that benefits you so much. This walk has benefited me so much, and I want it to benefit you as well. Shalom, and I love you, and stay prayed up! All right.
Brilliant.
There's one thing that I forgot. Now, this is one of the biggest things that happen, and this is like on those slow steps to get you to actually take the Bible to be true. When I was in university, along with Wallace and a whole bunch of other guys that I met, there was a guy named Rome. Rome did not go to Howard University, but he wanted to go to Howard University. Rome made sure that in the Bible study that I had attended at the time, that he said we need to be a family. We need to have fellowship. And up until that point, because I never hanged out with the people at my church, I never saw that piece of the Bible about fellowship. But Rome placed in my heart that you have to fellowship with believers. It's only like people hang out with each other. So I had to fellowship. So I am so grateful for Rome, and I hope I got everybody, I know I'm missing people in this testimony for real. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is part of the college experience that I forgot. Okay, so Rome, right? Another thing that happened in my college experience was this, and I'm done. I'm pretty sure I am done, and this is it.
No, wait. You gotta say about how the Father protected you in the car when you were 15 or 16, because you said in public what you're gonna do, and how that came around to protect you.
Wait, what did I say?
With the vow of abstinence.
Oh, I did. Didn't I?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Just stress
okay.
on how
Okay, wait, start again. Okay, so I thought that was the end of my testimony, but there's a few things that I left out. Really 3 things. Hopefully there's no more. And these things are very, very important things that happened to me in college. And one about the girl. So when the girl was in the car with me and she said, I'm going to take your virginity or whatnot, and she didn't. She said, are you serious about that vow of abstinence? I would never know that vow that I took when I was 14 would save me, because I did not say a word. She read me, she read my body language, and she said no. And I thank her for not going through or taking my virginity or not. Second thing, when I was in school, there was a guy named Rome in college. And Rome did not go to Howard University, but he attended the Bible study. He wanted to go to Howard University. And Rome stressed in the Bible study, we have to fellowship with each other. We need to hang out with each other. We need to be one body. But Rome didn't grow up in a church, or I think he did a little bit, but he didn't really grow up in the church. But that was what the church was missing. Nobody fellowshiped with each other. Nobody hanged out with each other. Once you left, you left. If your dads or parents weren't friends with each other, you never fellowship with another young like-minded believer. But he stressed it so much it became annoying. But I would be looking at Rome, but in a different way, I'm like, man, maybe he got something. Maybe we really are supposed to be fellowship. And he planted a seed in my life of that we need to be fellowship. So now the place I'm at right now, BYA, I do a whole bunch of events, and it's all credited to Rome and the spirit that was behind him to see the word of fellowship. So I think that spirit that was behind him at that time. And Rome now is crazy. He went from not believing, has a beautiful wife who I know, Annalise. I wish them well in the marriage. I found out that I was actually the reason for the marriage. Didn't know. I gladly, when I was in college too, I was trying to find an escape. I did this event with some people, and it was yoga. I did yoga. I did a lot of Bikram yoga. And one girl called me up, and she's like, yo, Derak, you're worshiping other spirits through Bikram yoga. And I was like, what? So I went up and I looked it up online, and she was right. And so after that, I stopped doing yoga. The other thing, and I think this is one of the coolest things, so after I did my first internship, my sophomore year at Freddie Mac, it was the worst experience that I've ever had in my life. I never wanted to work in the corporate world again, so even when it comes to looking for jobs, I look for specific type of things. I don't like the corporate world in any way because of that experience. And the next summer, I said, I'm going to try entrepreneurship for myself. I'm going to go out there and do it. I was in front of like the Howard Towers, and I was riding my bike with no shoes off. And there's this thing when you ride a fixie bike, it's called skidding. Well, I was skidding to make a streak, and I scraped the front of my toe off. And it took that whole summer for my foot to heal. Now, I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. I didn't want to go home. But when the summer started, when the summer had stopped, it got to a point where everybody that was around me, it seemed like they didn't really believe that we were just playing this big old game, right? And I was playing basketball. My toe had finally healed. I'm on the basketball court, and this gentleman approaches me. And it's in the middle of the night. Shamari Stone, love you, my guy. And he's actually a news anchor. And he approaches me, but I didn't know he was a news anchor at this time. And he starts asking me all these random questions. What school do you go to? Who you are? La, 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 all this nonsense, right? And then he looks, and then eventually when we're shooting shots, and he just keeps talking, and like the most annoying man in the world. I'm like, why is this dude talking to me, man? Like, this is annoying. Like, my whole summer's been ruined. I didn't make no money. Like, I've been stuck in this freaking room. Like, I scraped my toe off. Like, I didn't do any of the entrepreneurship that I said I want to be, and I only got a short time. I'm pissed. So I'm just shooting some basketball just to relax. He comes, he talks, and he's asking all these random questions. And he says to me, I'm actually with that truck over there. I'm a news reporter. I had no reason to come over here and talk to you. But I felt the Father told me to come over and tell you that you need to read the book Kingdom Man by Tony Evans. I didn't realize at that point, but I was really ready to give up the faith thing. I didn't do anything, but I was ready to give it up because it seemed like nobody around me was actually trying to live this thing out. Everybody was playing a game. So when I read that book, Kingdom Man by Tony Evans, it was the affirmation that I needed to give me strength to continue on my walk regardless of whether people were really trying to live it out. Because the thing also about living it out, church people are normally the most boring people in the world. They have no personality. They have no flavor, nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's why I like hanging out with the neighborhood kids, because they have flavor. Church people were boring. So like the fact that I could see that you didn't have to be born and you can have like, cause I have flavor. I wanted somebody with a little bit of flavor too. You know what I'm saying? And to find people with flavor, oh man, like oh, hallelujah. You know, so I think that's the final thing. You know what I'm saying? So you know, hey, stay prayed up. Hey, wait, yep. Stay prayed up.
Excellent.